So the title of this panel is going to be Panel Discussion on the Investment in Translational Research Projects in the UK. And I keep meeting people who say to me, VCs have given up on investing in translational research. They just want revenue-generating companies. So perhaps we can come back to that. But before I do that, let me just let the panellists introduce themselves, starting at the end with Kevin.
Kevin Johnson. I work for Index Ventures, which is a London-based venture capital firm. Basically, everything we do is early translational stuff. We don't actually do much later stage, although we probably should do more.
David?
David Phillips from SR1, based in their London headquarters. I'm what's called a GSK returnee, had 16 years at GSK, went out to the biotech world. Alan hired me as a business development hired gun at Cambridge Combinatorial. Played around in the biotech world, didn't make any money, so I'm back in GSK as a venture capitalist.
Okay, and I'm Allan Marchington from Assetbased Capital. Again, we're an investor in the life sciences business. So, just returning to my earlier point to Kevin and David, are you guys investing in translational research, would you say? Kevin?
I could pick it up first. Yeah, I mean, as I say, so basically over time, our investment model, which is a different thing from a business model, our investment model has moved to trying to do everything on, it's moved to this thing called asset-centric investing, which is basically investing in a single molecule or mechanism of action in one company. So it emphatically isn't trying to develop a pipeline, it's just trying to develop one drug and develop it well, or kill it. Preferably, if you're going to kill it, do it early. But the part of that is it's aimed at the transition from preclinical or late research, early preclinical, through to first time in man, at which point we want to partner it. So that's basically our default model, and we try and do that in one round of investment. So we only do fundraising once, and then it's a drawdown against milestones to deliver a clinical outcome. And hopefully it's a positive one, and it's proof of relevance, proof of mechanism, proof of whatever you like, but we can transact on it. That's really the bottom line of what we do.
Okay. So just to answer the question about service businesses and revenue generating businesses, so up to 4 years ago we'd only invested in Syntaxin in Oxford. Andrew Whitty announced the launch of a 50 million UK fund 2 years ago. Since then we've invested in Mission Therapeutics, Bicycle Therapeutics, Cyoxis, and recently a new stem cell company based on the Stevenage Bioscience Park called Progenitor. We're very much attracted by Kevin's model. We're mixing our model up a little bit from company formation to project funded investing. But as you know, we recently ran a business plan competition called One Start, where we really are looking to get dynamic intellectual property out of the academic arena and get it into commercialization. And hopefully that process has stimulated some of the UK biotech community.
Good. And in terms of the One Start competition, what came out of that for you guys?
Well, I'll tell you what came out of it. You got something between 35 and 50 companies who, one, had access to mentors, people such as Kevin, other VCs around the world, so they were actually able to tap into incredible intellectual prowess to really understand what they needed to do to build a business. They also got exposed to venture capitalists, and we know from anecdotal feedback that even though there was only 1.5 winners, as in the prize, the £100,000 prize went to one, we actually supported a second company as well. We know that many of the others are now in active engagement with VC. So I think all in all, there's an extremely positive outcome. We were just overblown by how well it went.
Right, okay. Kevin, I know you've been doing some stuff sort of similar in the Cambridge area.
Yeah. So, I mean, the One Start thing was actually a really interesting, I would call it an exercise or an experiment, but it just shows you that there's no lack of spirit or demand to build out early biotech companies, because and until about a year ago, I would have questioned that, because we just basically weren't seeing stuff coming through. We're seeing a load of stuff. So the thing from our perspective, I'm pretty sure it's from David's perspective as well. We don't care where these things are. So whether they're in the UK or in Europe or preferably not in China, Christ, then the time zones get you.
We've got a Chinese company.
Yeah. That's why you never sleep. So if you've got US and China, then that's it. You're stuffed. But basically, we don't care where they are. And what we were seeing was a lot of stuff coming through in Europe, for example. Not a lot coming out of the UK. which was a bit annoying. But you know, we're starting to see a bit more coming through now of things that we can invest in. And if I can give you an example, there's a deal we announced a couple of weeks ago called XO1. So it's a Cambridge company. It's based on an antibody that's a thrombin inhibitor. And the reason we went in for that is it looks like that antibody is capable, this is in the anticoagulant space, it's a massive area. And while most of the trials are being done in oncology, you saw a bit earlier, in fact the biggest need is in cardiovascular. I mean, that's more likely to do the members of this audience than oncology, in fact. You know, it's the biggest killer. So we would like better anticoagulants. And the difficulty with developing an anticoagulant is that it's difficult to anticoagulate without also increasing your bleeding risk. So effectively, that's why it's monitored so carefully, because you can anticoagulate somebody, but then if they have to have surgery or anything else, you've really got to be able to restore them to normal clotting times. And it looks like this antibody molecule is capable of separating anticoagulation from bleeding risk. So we'll find out if it is. It's real translational stuff. And the story behind it is fantastic because it came through from a patient with a subdural hematoma. And it's picked up by Trevor Baglin and Jim Hinxton up at Addenbrooke's. Fantastic story, but it is translational. And the thing is that, as I say, we do most of our stuff is going from something like this through to proof of principle in man. But what sets this apart, actually, is that we had at least a little bit of human validation. And so as I get older and grumpier, what I notice is that the animal models are less predictive of outcome. And, you know, for example, oncology, I hate to say it, but basically they have virtually zero predictive value. Positive predictive value. They have negative predictive value, but nobody believes they're positively predictive. So if you've got something with a bit of human validation, it lifts the thing right out of the weeds and into your field of vision.
So that's the big tick on the box for you for translation.
Because we're trying to work out why was this so exciting. And actually it's because we had a connection with human biology that made it a lot more interesting than, had it not had that, I don't think we'd have been as excited about it.
Good. I've got a question in the audience which I'd like to pick up on. They may turn it up, I think. And, yeah.
Okay. I think you've just started to answer my question, actually. So you said you see lots of things coming through now, and I guess from where I was before, when I was in biotech and now in academia, the feeling is very much that VCs are not interested in our stuff because it's too early. So I was wondering if you could outline the key elements that make something investable for you. You just started to talk about human biology, but if you, the really important elements that make a project attractive to a VC, what are they?
So my background is in biotech, so I've come from the company side into the investing side, and I'll probably go back again. But it's interesting when you start to look at things from the perspective of an investor, because you do definitely look at the world differently. And the first thing, and actually the last
thing... You get meaner.
Actually, I think you do get a Paddington Bear hard stare going on most of these things. that you're very... You know, if you, actually, I don't think that building companies or doing drug development is actually the hardest thing you can do in these companies. I think it's selling the bloody thing. Right? Yeah. Selling a company is easily the hardest bit. You're not in control. Right? All you can do is set it up, but somebody else has got to kick the ball into the net. It's a very difficult thing. There's a lot of hurry up and wait, and what you see there really acutely is that you know, trying to get an asset to a point where it's attractive to more than one buyer is the key. Right. It's the key. So, given that you need to have exits from your investments, you just have to have that. So don't be surprised that people are thinking about the exit before they've even started looking at what you've got, because that's how you win or lose in this game. So you want to look for something that is transactable. One of the things that does really help in terms of giving you the belief that this thing is potentially valuable is if you've got some sort of human validation attached to it, rather than just endless animal models. Because anybody who's running animal models knows that it's all down to the detail, and you can skew the goalpost any way you like with these things. You really know what you're doing with an animal model. You can get the results you want. Right. And the thing is, as VCs, you just suck it up. So if you've got something that's then a positive correlation in man, it's golden.
David, go on.
Yeah, so I mean, we're on a bit of a charm offensive at the moment, if that's possible for a venture capitalist, in terms of communicating what makes a fundable company for SO1. And it's all the usual things like the management team, simple share structure, great IP, all the sort of normal things you'd expect to tick. What really gets me grumpy, and Kevin's often more grumpy than I am, is you go into a company, they've got some academic founder, they've got a guy running the company who's clearly unsuitable as CEO, you've got 4 business angels on the board. We love business angels, but you don't want 4 of them on the board. And you put it in the too hard box, because you've got to unravel the whole thing to try and make it a fundable company. So that's quite often a really massive turn-off. So it really is, talk to VCs early. Take the concept to people like Kevin and I early on and get some advice on how to put this thing together. What do you need to do to the management team? How does the IP really look? What is the share structure of the company? What's your expectations on valuation? Those are often things that really cause massive issues, and then you put it in the too hard box. I mean, going back to Kevin's point again, the saleability of the company. This is where I put my elevator pitch in for having a corporate in your syndicate. Is we know what companies we want to buy in GSK. So, but one of the affiliations of having a corporate venture arm next to an R&D arm in a big pharma company is we know how to turn this thing into something that's purchasable, not necessarily by GSK, but maybe by another corporate, and we'll take the best price. If Novartis want to pay 500 million for it, we'll sell it to them. GSK will be aware of it. They've got to step up to the plate and pay the market rate.
Yeah, okay. Good. I had another question. Jeff, I think, a question.
Thanks. Kevin's talked about asset-based investing. David talked about project-funded investments. What's your view from a UK perspective on 2 aspects of that? One, do we have sufficient institutions that are capable of producing assets that are mature enough to invest from your perspective? So is the production line okay? And how do you see the overall impact on the UK economy, in the sense that these assets are not intended to build companies, they're intended to be sold on?
You want me to pick that?
Yeah, go on.
So I'll pick up the second one.
Yeah.
I know that there's a desire that we build the next Genentech or Amgen, and we do it in Europe. There is, as far as I can see, there is only one reason why that's a good thing, and that is that it probably attracts more capital inflow and more talent inflow. So I think it's as an attractor, as opposed to something that's desirable in itself. Because if you look at it from an investment standpoint, the life sciences have been really terrible returns on investment, and that's both in the US. It's everywhere. So there's been a sort of a structural fundamental issue about it. In terms of where this stuff's going to come from, I think if it does happen, it'll happen naturally. But probably the biggest requirement is a reduced cost of capital. So you've got to have the capital markets here. And basically, the London market is just completely dead. There's
I think
nowhere it appears on our radar.
No, I think one of the problems is to build a decent, if you're talking biotech, build a decent biotech's what, $100 million, $150 million?
More than that. 200
million, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. Even capital efficient. And VCs sort of get tapped out at about 100, 150 and you're there. Yeah. And you need a public market to support it, it can take it up to the next level.
If it's gone more than 100 million with VC money, there's a bloodbath happening somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, somebody's lost their shirt.
Yeah. So that. Sorry? Choose your currency.
Yeah.
The only way I was going to just inject a little bit of optimism into the UK, aside the lack of the capital markets, is you know, GlaxoSmithKline was known as an Anglo-American company up till Andrew Whitty took over in 2008. This is very much a British company, and we're putting a significant amount of investment into the UK economy. £500 million biomanufacturing site in the north of England. We launched that 50 million UK venture fund. We've built the, you know, essentially injected capital into the building of the Stevenage Bioscience Catalyst. You know, and I've just invested in a company on that site, which probably wouldn't have happened other than the fact that GSK, number one, likes the technology and the company, carried out a proof of concept study on the stem cell technology, and then we went and invested in it. And that's like for me, a sort of poster child of the UK economy, where we really are trying to spin out and create some really, really interesting biotech companies. But I do agree, scale is still an issue.
But I'd add as a corollary to that it's basically, the people are there, they just look different, and they're not all in one place.
Yeah.
So I just think it's just got to be a healthy ecosystem.
Yeah.
The other good piece of news is in the last 6 months, healthcare has been the biggest gainer on the NASDAQ.
Absolutely.
Above all other industries, 23% up.
Yeah.
So a comment on the inputs side. Are there enough institutes providing assets that you can fund? Because of course the granting agencies, Wellcome, MRC, TSB, they're also funding assets rather than the producers of assets.
Yeah. So we are seeing things, and actually a couple of weeks ago we announced that we did something in Cambridge, and we can do anything, we can do it anywhere. So there's definitely there are definitely things that come through. But the other thing to bear in mind is that when you're looking to invest in a very early stage program, unless that program looks outstanding, right, it's not going to happen. It's got to look outstanding. I think we have actually too many micro companies in the UK. It actually acts as chaff, you know, the stuff that if you want to not be hit by a missile, you throw out the back of the plane. It's just shoaling instinct or something. It obscures the view, because unless it looks outstanding right at the start, right, by the time 3 or 4 years have passed and the competition's moved ahead, right, it's not going to look.
Things just collect
attractive.
baggage on the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
And so the thing is, if you're in the weeds on day one, you're going to be buried by the time that asset is ready to transact.
And sorry, I was going to say, Alan, that also big pharma can play a role. So if I give you an example, this company that we put on the SPC, that in the new open innovation model, and you can have all sorts of definitions of what that is, this company is going to be able to screen the GSK compound collection. There are subsets of stem cell libraries with biological activity and data behind them that the company's going to have access to. That is an incredibly powerful start. If you've got a technology that you rate, so you're out of the weeds already, and you're going to give it a path to success that's going to give you pharma scale and pharma capability. And, by the way, the stem cell DPU are 50 yards across the street, so they're mixing with these guys, going to lectures. That's where pharma can really help create some new companies, by opening its doors and trying to stimulate the sector rather than keeping everything closeted behind those large steel doors of Stevenage.
Yeah, good. David, question then one at the back as well.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I might have heard it, but I might have missed it. But I think we haven't heard much about teams. It's really not about assets. I mean, if you've got some good people, they can make anything good. If they've got the commercial nous and the expertise, it just takes a small group of really good people to, you know, because most of what we do fails, right? 99% of what we do fails. It's that 1% and driving that 1% through. So I was going to ask the panel, what's it like in terms of people in the UK? Not assets, but people, teams.
Limiting factor, the limiting factor, especially because I don't. So this is another hobby horse. Sorry, I'll get off it soon. That there's actually no shortage of cash. Cash is not going to run out, right? There's no shortage. There's actually no shortage of ideas either. You sit inside a venture capital house and you just see that you just get a wash with stuff. It's relentless. So there's no shortage of that either. You know, and if you're a scientist in a lab somewhere, you know, if you have one really good idea every 18 months, you're probably doing well, right? But you sit on the other side, it's relentless. So really what it comes down to is people, and particularly serial entrepreneurs. So people who are willing to take a risk, know how to do it, and then apply that to the next one. That's the bit that we need more of.
Yeah. I mean, if I take my last boss, Christoph Westphal, sold an ILM for 1.3 billion, then sold Certris to GSK for 720 million. And within 20 weeks of leaving GSK, when he left as president of SR1, he floated Veristem on the Nasdaq.
Yeah, I know.
It's
Awesome.
just, it just knows how to do it. And we need, as you said, we need more of those people who just know how to do it.
Yeah, the rock stars. I think asking for too many of them is a big ask.
But yeah, the one-start competition, actually, I was quite encouraged. There's some young entrepreneurs in there who came out with some really, early leadership skills. And I think if we can mentor those people and get them, on these management teams in some of these companies, I think that'd be great.
Good. Question up the back somewhere.
Hi, Piers Mann from Bain & Company. I wanted just to pick up on Kevin's point about the fact that you need to kill off the chaff. My passion is oncology. The pipelines are incredibly deep. Most mode of actions have got 5 compounds against them or so.
But it's cheap to develop.
Sorry?
Sorry. It's cheap to develop.
Return on... I'd love it to be. The return on capital on that across the whole market is just not going to wash.
Yeah.
How do we kill more, faster, smarter?
Don't invest in them.
Yeah, well, actually, I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah.
In fact, we're sort of working anti-oncology. I think oncology is well served, to be honest with you. I mean, that if a fraction of those compounds make it, the bar is going to be so high for the people, for the companies that we're backing today, that it makes it untransactable. So we're focusing elsewhere. I mean, we're still doing oncology plays. It just seems to be like a herding instinct, I suppose. But in terms of where we're looking, we're certainly not spending a great deal of time looking in that space. But I agree with you. I think it's going to become a very, very competitive space with things getting salami sliced thinner and thinner.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. We've definitely narrowed therapeutic focus. I mean, you saw GSK got out of essentially neuroscience and pain, I hate to say. But that there were reasons strategically for that. So we're hardly going to go to Monsef with a pain investment because that's just not going to fly. But we've really started exploring new areas now like IT, healthcare, digital health, and bioelectronics. GSK announced recently the launch of an initiative within GSK in that area. So we are definitely broadening in some senses, but we are taking some critical view of therapeutic areas like you have.
Yeah, I mean, but I have to say though that we try not, even though we've got GSK. Well, actually, the fund that we're investing out of has got GSK and J&J as strategic investors in there. So they have no call over what we do. They have no call over the companies that we invest in, but they just get to see what we're doing. The real value for us is that we see what is, so there's a good proxy for what is transactable or what is likely to be transactable. So hopefully we make some smarter investments. But the thing is though that this is like prospecting. I always think it's like prospecting. You don't know where something's going to crop up and whether it's and you can say we're not doing any neuroscience. Right, and the next thing you see is there's something super exciting in neuroscience.
Thing, yeah.
And I would hate to say no to opportunities like that.
I think what you say is there's a natural selection here, and so those oncology companies are going to disappear naturally, or they're going to just fade away or change to another indication and move to rheumatoid arthritis, RA, or whatever, which is where everybody goes.
You cynic.
But the thing
may be
about
good.
entrepreneurs is that they stick to something for ages.
Yeah.
And occasionally, I think you need to have a hard talk with yourself. Is this really am I flogging a dead horse?
I must admit, some entrepreneurs don't know when it's a no,
Yeah.
and it really is a no, and they should just move on and stop sending me emails.
Yeah.
Because it's a no, and I don't know any ways to say no, but no, we're never going to do this, it's no. But they've been told at business school they've got to keep coming back, and it's somewhat the same with their therapies, they've got to say no, and I admire them for it. But
Yeah.
Oh, so you say that as well, it's too early.
It's too early. It's actually code for fuck off.
No, it's not.
It is. It so is. It's the first thing I learned. Yeah.
Right, okay, it's 3:05, everybody. Is there any more burning questions out there that people want to cover? Anything from the panel? Any further last thoughts that you've got?
There's one up there.
There's one where? Last question of this session.
11 o'clock.
What would you say is missing from the education of scientists who end up in companies not able to run businesses? And secondly, do you think that various things announced by the government, TSB, SBRI, are not discriminating enough to eliminate the chaff?
So on the government initiatives, I don't think anybody really understands the biology well enough to make a decision on whether it's wheat from chaff, to be honest, at that stage. Maybe that's unfair.
Well, I was on one panel yesterday,
Right.
one of Helen's panels yesterday, and actually there's some good stuff on there.
Yes, there is. I agree. I think it's good stuff. I think
So I think actually the refinement of wheat from chaff is definitely getting there. That's as good a body of expertise around a table to look at a particular opportunity as you'd ever see, and certainly better than you'd see in most venture houses.
Sorry, Kevin, I should have qualified. I thought the projects that are going into the TSB are good, and you can't really differentiate between.
Oh no, the early stage stuff you just don't know.
Sorry, I should have articulated that a little better.
And the other one was the educational system. Christ knows.
I think an appreciation that, to some extent, the trouble is the venture model's changing significantly, and I think now there's a lot of other sources in the UK of capital to fund companies.
Yeah.
So we've got the TSB, we've got the Biomedical Catalyst Fund, etc. We've got MRC, we've got Wellcome, we've got Syncona, we've got a lot of different ways of doing it. And I think venture is just one component of that. And as a scientist, I think you've got to understand what your endpoint wants to be and know who to go to for where you want to get to. And the bottom line for VCs is we've got to make money for people who give us the money. Mm-hmm. And so if you want to come in, build it and sell it and make money, then VCs are a great route. If you want to build a business, a lifestyle business that you want to retire in, VCs isn't the way to go. Well, don't come to me.
No, that's good. That's a great summary, actually.
I think that's, and so that understanding for scientists, I think they've got to know where to go to for the money for what they want to do. Okay. Any last thoughts on the panel? Any last piece of wisdom, advice?
Not from me. Going to the wrong place.
David?
No, just talk to VCs earlier rather than later.
Yeah, good advice.
If you don't want to build a lifestyle.
If you don't want to build a lifestyle.
If you don't want to build a lifestyle business. Good. And without that, thank you to our speakers earlier. Thank you very much. Some interesting discussions and sticking to time. And thank you to the panellists. And thanks very much, everybody.